Hi, everyone. Welcome to Cheese in Depth, and I'm Michael Landis, and today we really have a unique direction to go in. Today we're going to talk with Jonathan from Banner Butter. And it's interesting how sometimes you get to meet people in the industry and around. I was doing an event in Atlanta with ASW Distillery doing, I believe it was women whiskey and cheese or something of that sort, and it was a all women cheese makers with women who made whiskey, and he happened to be there and we met up talking about being able to do something in the future, and here we are today. We finally were able to get together and plan a little event where we have some butter, we have some charcuterie, and we have some cheese, of course. So it'll be really fun listening to the different styles of butters that are made. But what's important here is that there is a big difference in the styles of butter, and it'll be really fun to be able to see that. And for us, we get to taste that, but that doesn't mean that you can't, because after this, you can order it and do it yourself. So this will be really fun. We got a lot of Georgia products here as well. So let me introduce you to Jonathan.
Hi, thanks, Michael. Yeah, it was a pleasure to get to meet you at the ASW event, and we're really excited to bring to you guys this idea that really well-made cultured butter not only is unique on its own and is made in its own way, and what we do here at Banner Butter is kind of unique, but it really deserves a place on a cheese or charcuterie board that's going to kind of bring out the flavors of whatever you put there, but definitely deserves a place. So if you're ready, Michael, I think we can get started. So Banner Butter, we're here based out of Atlanta, Georgia, and we're really proud of the cultured butter that we do here. It's a small batch culture process, and with that we're able to make butter kind of the way it was done for millennia back. If your great grandmother had a farm and made butter for you, she gave you cultured butter, and so that's what we strive to do here at Banner Butter. So we'll just start off with a story. Drew and Elizabeth McBath are the co-founders and the owners of Banner Butter. And really, they were doing some traveling around Europe and found that when they were traveling on these wine tours, these nice small villages, they were coming upon small village creameries and getting this amazing butter, and really wondering why that wasn't available to them back home in Georgia. Especially with the long history of agriculture that was here in Atlanta. And so they came back really armed only with some 19th century diaries and just a desire to produce something really good. They started in a small kitchen share place, and we kind of built that up since 2012. Courtney is the director of operations. She came on about 18 months ago. Nicole is our marketing, and both of them have a background in food. Courtney coming from some places like Bella Cucina here in the South and Artful Food. Myself, I just showed up in Atlanta about a year ago and was very lucky to find people who had such a desire for slow culture food, and was happy to come along. I come from up north. I started in Michigan, spent a lot of years in New York, and then found my way down here, like I said, a year ago. So that's kind of our team and a little bit of where Drew and Elizabeth started. So really, we like to talk about three kind of points that put us apart from different places, and they're going to be different kind of definitions that are unique to us, but we'll bring those all together. So one, we think that because we're using grass-fed and hormone-free, RBST-free cows, we get better nutrition, better health, and we'll go over what that means not only for you guys eating it, but also the cows and how we handle them. We have a full range of different butter blends that we'll get into in the tasting, and be able to see how those pair differently with the different charcuteries and the different cheeses. But very simple. We've done kind of the prep work for you already, and you can just jump in there. And then the fact that we're going back to a slower way of doing things, and we get better taste from that ripening process that we'll get into in a little bit. So by doing those three things, we are able to get a higher butter fat percentage. So we range anywhere between 84 to 87% butter fat, and it's something we're really proud of here. So like I said, that's a lot to kind of throw at you at once, but I just want to kind of go into what, if we're starting the process, we're really starting with where we're getting the cream from. And we get locally here from some local dairies here in Georgia and Alabama, trying to get the freshest, best local cream we possibly can. And so I'll go into a little bit here in a second with what that means and how we start the process. One of the things that we do that makes it so unique, and one of the things that I was kind of amazed when I got down from up north was the fact that we work with rotational grazing, which means that our cows are touching grass 365 days a year, which, you know, is very unique. But that also plays into this idea that you're really getting the terroir. And that's kind of why I wanted to pair up with Michael in the first place, that this particular region, this unique place in Georgia, you're getting to taste what the cows are eating, how that's produced, and it's coming through on the plate. So here's a little quick idea of what rotational grazing means. We use a management intensive grazing, and just in a 12-hour rotation going through about 4 different paddocks. They're able to go through there. There are a lot of benefits that come along with that. Again, for the cow, for the land, for everything. We're really, Drew and Elizabeth wanted to make sure that we were trying to do our best to be stewards of not only this tradition of butter making, but of the land and what we were taking out of it and respecting that. So it's important that we do this kind of rotational grass-fed production. And then if we want to go on to the next slide, I think that one's going to be talking about what that means for cows. Well, so for those benefits that we're talking about that you get, again, for the cows themselves, but for the environment as well, just overall better cow health. They're not going to be crowded. They're not going to be relying on hormones to keep them healthy. You can see there's our way of doing things and another way on the other side, and I'll just leave it to you guys to kind of back and forth. Improve groundwater quality overall, healthier, longer-lived cows. That was very important to us, and of course, fewer cows per acre. That means less stress for the cows. That means they can produce more milk, more cream, and that cream's going to have a higher butter fat that we're going to then take in the next process when we start talking about what we do here at Banner Butter and really get those higher butter fat percentages, that 84 to 87%. What you get is you're going to get higher beta carotene levels, help out with your immune system, skin health. Vitamin E is going to go up, so you get eye, skin health, immune support. You're going to get some other things that help out with lower body protection against type 2 diabetes, and omega-3 fatty acids is one I can say. Protection against depression and heart disease. So again, not only are we kind of saving these techniques from kind of disappearing, you're also getting your own health benefits that go along with it. And then we can go into what we have up next. Here, we put together a little video. Just we find what we do here to be fairly unique. And again, we are, you know, one of our taglines is that we are slow cultured, but we're also small batch. And we are a smaller company, but we think that helps us to produce a much a high quality product. It's one of the things that's been here from the beginning. And this is just kind of a day in the life video. I can produce about 435 pounds of butter a day in our churn, but you'll be able to see Drew, he's our co-founder, kind of going in a day of life. This is often what I do and my team gets to do every day, but it should be a little interesting slice of what happens here at Banner Butter. So I don't know if the sound's on for that, but there's figure special music. That's kind of the mill to grain stage would be what it would be called in France when we're separating the butter and whey. Here we call it popcorning, just because it turns into these little popcorn sheets. This is after that process, and we've spun it and gotten all the whey out and then washed it. And this is finally being pulled out and churned and spread, where we go into, after this, we'll freeze it, form it into different forms, and then finally hand package it. These are our good friends over at Buttermilk Kitchen. Chef Susan is one of our great customers. She uses our buttermilk whey, our real buttermilk whey, which I can talk about in a second, and our butter at table service and in production. So getting all the way from the farm through us to that table. Hope that gives a little clearer idea, or at least a sense of what we do here every day. So just to kind of go over, because a lot of people don't know the difference, and when you see different terms at the grocery store, they can be overwhelming. So a lot of times when you walk into a store, you'll see sweet cream butter. That's a large percentage of what you're going to see on any shelf throughout America, North America. And really, sweet cream butter, it means that it's been taken from the cows, it's been chilled, it's been pasteurized, and that is then sweet cream. What they do is they churn that into butter. What I'm going to go through is our naturally cultured process, and this is why it takes us at Banner Butter about 20 times as long to make the same butter that if we start at the same time as the other guys. So again, we get it chilled, pasteurized, that sweet cream comes into us, and what we do is we take it, first thing, we throw it in our fermentation tank, and we warm that up to about 73 degrees. That's the kind of ideal temperature for our bacteria to do what they need to do. Once we raise that slowly over about 6 hours, so about 6 hours, I'd say, depending on the amount of cream we have in there, we add our bacteria. The lactobacillus, and that's that good bacteria that we're using to sit there, and we ripen that process takes anywhere from 12 to 36 hours. We've done it at times upwards of that, and we find that's where we get the best flavor. That's where we're getting our flavoring from. Other people use lactic acid to get that natural flavoring. We're doing it in this kind of more ancient way. And from there, we take it. After it's in there, we chill that back down again after it's been fermented. And once we chill that, we churn it. And again, that's a longer process from the time I'm pumping from the fermentation tank into our churn, which I can show you guys in a little bit. Because we're in Atlanta, it's called Ted Churner. But once we put it in there, it's about 4 to 5 hours just in the washing and the draining process, and then churning and just rolling it until we can expel all the liquid. Then we chill that for about another 12 hours, put it in our formers, extrude it, and then you saw the end process where people were packaging it for us. So that's how we go through, and really we take that time because it builds flavor, and that's really what we want to do, and that's why we think it deserves a place here in talking with Michael. So that's kind of what I was just talking about here is the beneficial bacteria. That is the taste. We're not getting it from any added flavoring at the end. It's the process that we do here at Banner Butter that creates that flavor, that slow culture process that takes the time that we give it. Gives us higher acidity, and then we can add our flavor compounds, and we can go over that in a second. It gives us unique taste and more flavor. And again, you know, because we are culturing it, that just adds an extra layer of food safety to it. So those are kind of all the things that why we think it's important to culture. So our product lineup, we'll go into it today. We're going to be tasting our sea salt that you see on the far left, our roasted garlic. We won't be tasting the unsalted or the smoked sea salt today, but we will be doing cinnamon, cardamom, ginger, and our red pepper mash. But on top of those, we have a few that we have all the time. So we also do that smoked sea salt, which you just saw, which I put in some onions and black pepper. Goes great to finish any kind of game meat, steak, things like that. But also, I think could do very well as an accoutrement here. We also have an Atlantic dairy sea salt, which is kind of a unique pairing that we've done with the dairies here. We do barbecue, blackberry basil on a seasonal basis, and lemon chive. For our food product lineup, ½ ounce butter pats, 1 ounce handcrafted butter pats, and we also do Wrapped branded mini 1-serve butter pats. And you know, we're unique in that we are one of the only people who are doing a cultured butter pat that's out there on the market. So we're excited about that. We also do, just in that process of producing, of course, we make whey, which is real buttermilk, and we're one of a handful of people in North America who are actually producing and selling real buttermilk whey out there. The benefits of that, one, it's not created by just adding lactic acid to milk or cream. Again, it's the whole process of making this. This is the byproduct of it. The flavor is almost like a kefir. You get the benefits of the probiotics that are already added in there. We work really hard to keep the pH at a certain level, so if you're doing baking, and we think it's unique. Again, the 1 ounce mini serve butters, unique flavors, and we can design and we can do co-packaging with you. So if you were wanting to do that for a client, we could, and they are perfect for just kind of finishing a steak if it's in the window. You know, so if you have clients who are looking for something to add a little special something to that, it's great. It's also during this time of COVID when we're socially distancing and you want to do your own cheese or charcuterie plate, you can give them 1 ounce butter to just make sure everyone's safe.
I think it's time for a tour.
All right, we can do the tour. Let me, I guess I'll just pick this up and we'll go, or that's off. So yeah, I'll just take you on a quick, we are a small company, so we don't have that far to go. But you just walked through our packaging room and now we're in our production room. Thank you very much. So here's where our fermentation tank is. Again, this is the start of it. Well, the start is really the cows doing their work, working you know, all year long, being grass-fed, bringing that in. And I don't know if you want to take a peek inside. You can see we have, I think, 115 gallons ripening right now. So that's about 24 hours into the ripening process. We're going to let that sit overnight, we're chilling right now. So we've already let it ripen. We're chilling. I'm going to come in tomorrow and first thing in the morning turn up the chiller and pump it into our churn. I don't know if you can get Ed's name up there, but we do affectionately call him Ted Turner. So this is a churn that we got from a dairy farm in Denmark and has served us very, very well. We are able to produce about 435 pounds of butter every single day if we wanted to. And then after that, we take it out, we form it, and then we package it and send it off to you guys. But that's the process. Thank you. All right, so this is our sea salt. What we do with this is we use two types of hand harvested sea salt that we get from out west. The first is the fine sea salt, and that's really just to add a layer of flavor. The coarse sea salt is for texture, and again, one of the reasons I chose it for this this is I thought that it could stand up to some things, even though it is kind of the truest expression of what we're tasting here today, of what we do here, and that terroir that we're getting from the cows. But you know, when you taste it, that salt's going to bring through some of that funkiness that we get in the ripening process. All that depth of flavor that we built up through that 36-hour process is going to come through, and then you're going to get a little texture there. So if you're tasting along at home, I might just smell it. I mean, there's already a big difference between most butters that you're finding on someone's table. And then I would just taste it, get the mouthfeel. Again, we get our butters to 84 to 87% butter fat, so it's going to have a much richer mouthfeel for you.
Well, you know, one of the things that we talked about was being able to pair it up with different things. So on my cheese board, I have the butter set up with, and you have the sea salt starting on here. So
Okay. I'm sorry. Which one did you start with?
That's okay. We can shift to that. You can see that I got the sea salt right here. And that is with the Truffle Tremor. And this is the Cypress Grove. So this is essentially very much like their Humboldt Fog, whereas it has a nice little bloomy rind on it, and it's filled with truffles. And so adding a little bit of the sea salt butter really makes this a very decadent flavor characteristic of having all of that extra fat. And so I paired it up with the Rustic Bakery, and these are organic sourdough flatbreads, and it's olive oil and sea Gris, which is just really simple when you put those together. But really, to top this off, a nice charcuterie. And you and I have a great friendship with Kevin with the Spotted Trotter. So
Yeah.
he gave us some duck prosciutto, which I think is just totally crazy to be able to go with something like that. I think it's really magnificent that we get to play with something this decadent in our pairing. And then on top of that, you know, you got to have a beverage. You know, you just can't just have that. So keeping with the Georgia theme, originally I was going to use another pale ale because I really like to have something that's going to really cut into all this butter. And so I'm using, which is right across the street from the ASW that we were at, is the SweetWater 420, you know, their extra pale ale, which will kind of help cut into this a little bit because you really need something to, you know, really kind of kick that together.
Sure. Yeah, and so I stopped by to talk with our friends at Spotted Trotter last night, and I didn't get exactly what you got, but I think that does talk to exactly what we're saying here, that you know, there are many different unique ways that you can go with any of these. And we got I got the mauve, which is sheep and goat with a ash rind running through the middle, and they were really adamant that I try each one on its own and then try them together. And when I tried them together with the duck prosciutto, it just took another level. And then when I added the sea salt, the coarse sea salt, the fine sea salt just kind of punched that richness that was already there up. And yeah, I think you're absolutely right. You need something to cut through that, like what you have. I don't have any SweetWater IPA on me.
Well, this is their 420 pale, but
Okay.
IPA, I like a session IPA would work really well. Something that isn't too hoppy. But what's really unique, and I don't think that this is, you would find this on a traditional cheese board, but I think this is something that really works incredibly well, is having that butter and sea salt flavors that work so perfectly with the cheese, because the cheese has got the butter in it. This just kind of amplifies all the flavors, brings out the truffle in the cheese, and this duck prosciutto is, its richness, you know, the heavy or rich flavors that you get from the duck really blend in. And I was thinking that maybe it would be overwhelming, all these big flavors, but they blend so well and easy together that it's delicious.
I think one of the things that and one of the reasons I was so excited when we got to meet was I think that this is overlooked almost, because people have that conception that it's going to be too much. There's going to be too much rich flavor when you're adding these things together. But really, they blend seamlessly together. And, you know, when I talked to you in the past, you know, you have this gradation of flavors of butter that naturally come with different cheeses. And, you know, if we think about it, not hindering that, taking away from the cheese or the meat, but adding something to it, I think is a preconception that I hope that this helps to break down. So I'm sorry I went out of order there, but what do you have up next? I mean, I'll continue to eat this duck prosciutto because they do amazing things over at Spotted Trotter.
Yeah, that's actually the first time that I've ever had his duck prosciutto. And when I was setting this up, I was thinking, and especially looking at the color of this, because it's absolutely beautiful and sliced so thin that it's just such a nice addition. You could really build little mini snacks, appetizers with this by putting these together. And you just need a little dab of the butter, but the butter really brings out so much of the flavors across the board that it's just wonderful, really enjoyable. That's the first thing that I have to say about that. So looking at what we have on here is, why don't we go with the roasted garlic then for our next one? How does that sound?
Sounds perfect. Yeah, roasted garlic with basil and parsley. Probably our best seller. We started out small, so we started going to the farmers markets here in Atlanta at the get-go to sell. And I think this is always and continues to be one of our best sellers at the farmers market. We are throughout the Southeast in Whole Foods. So you can find us there if you happen to be in the Southeast. We do ship this all throughout the United States. And you can find us in places in Texas, in Central Texas at Central Market. But this is, we do have to give a shout out to Endurance Farms. They give us our herbs for this. Really bright, fresh basil and parsley, and then that roasted garlic that we add to it. And I wanted to put this up there first. Obviously, the sea salt is good for showing you what the base of all of these butters are going to be and how that flavor can carry over. But then when we're adding more complex flavors, how our butter and that richness that you start off with can be taken somewhere else with some love and care. This is, and you paired this with fresh goat cheese?
Yes. On mine, I use the Vermont Creamery goat cheese for this, and knowing that goat cheeses do very well with flavors to them, so it's not like it's going to be a big jump for that, for the being able to pair these up. Adding more flavor in, there's a Vermont Creamery does a mixed milk version of their goat cheese. So really what we're doing is we're making a mixed milk version of the goat cheese, of the bloomy rind, of these things. When you think about it, that you do, this isn't anything new. The difference is that we're using a higher quality and a cultured butter, which takes it to a complete different level. And then we use the Trotter Bresaola for this, and which is, this again is very, very meaty and adds a lot of meat flavor to it. And I paired it up with the Brewer's crackers, which are made with the spent grains, and they are just sea salt. Didn't need to add anything there. And for my beer pairing, I went with something local here in Tampa, and that is the Cigar City, the Tocobaga Red IPA. So this is what we really see here is you can see the maltiness in here. So I have an IPA that's malty, and that's really where I thought we wanted to go, because we have all of this tang, all this butter, and we need to kind of throw some hops in here, but also you've got all these flavors that need a little bit of warmth to them, because you got the tanginess and the flavor. So that was the direction that I went.
Great, yeah. And we went with their Bresaola for this one?
Yes. Yeah, the Bresaola is the one that was that I thought would really work. It's very meaty, and that the amount of creaminess of this butter. A lot of times once you get to room temperature, you still get that, I wouldn't say plastic feeling, but that thickness in here. This is cream. This is it's just so decadently rich.
Yeah, it's amazing when you taste the two side by side, and it's almost like they're two different products. And we're just very proud of what we do here, and we think that that there's a place for this for everyone, and we're excited to get more people to try it. But
the tanginess of the goat cheese, you get that lemony flavor, and then adding in a little bit of the butter with the garlic, the parsley, the basil. They work perfect together. A little bit of sea salt in here, and then of course a little bit of the meaty Bresaola. And this is probably one of the most decadent little appetizers.
yeah. Yeah, I did. I don't have the beverage pairing in you, so I'm just munching on some pickled red onions I made just to kind of cut through that, because it is so decadent. I don't know if I'm going to make it all the way through without something.
when I was setting this up, one of the things I was thinking about is that the Three Little Pigs, they do a caper, the caper fruit. Yeah. And I thought that would be absolutely perfect as a little addition to this to add a little bit more. But you know, that's like one more.
Yeah.
We're taking it from 10 to 11, you know, because it's everything that you would want. This is such the contrast of the tangy goat cheese with the creamy butter, with the flavors in it, with the meat flavors and the sea salt. It's just really well balanced in richness. But again, take a little bit of something with, I think just a traditional IPA, depending on the style. I think if you were on a East Coast version, you would get a little bit more of the noble version hops in here instead of the citrus or piney, because those really wouldn't work very well with this. You really need that earthiness, and that's where a red IPA comes in really uniquely and well balanced for all of the flavors.
And you said that that company's down with you in Tampa?
Yeah, this is Cigar City. As a matter of fact, tomorrow I'm doing a Cigar City pairing with Cigar City at 4 o'clock tomorrow on Friday.
Awesome. And I just to give another shout out to our good friend Kevin over at Spotted Trotter. You're doing something with him later on this month?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, Kevin is going to be coming on this time. Kevin with his charcuterie with the Spotted Trotter, and he's going to be pairing up his charcuterie with Jessica Little from Sweetgrass, which I have one of her cheeses coming up very soon. So awesome. That'll be really fun. They've been friends for years, so it'll be fun having both of them on. And oh my God, just you know, I have to add another hour of exercise in the morning just to compensate for the amount of crazy good charcuterie, butter, and you know, so many things recipe-wise on butter. I've been a butter fan for a very long time, and being able to use that in recipes, even simple potatoes, taking this rosemary, garlic, and parsley, slicing up some red potatoes, putting that on there, wrapping it in aluminum foil, putting it up on the grill to, you know, kind of melt and crisp up a little bit. They are the best potatoes in the entire world. I mean, it's a meal in itself.
Very simple, you know, with our seasonal right now, one of our seasonals right now is lemon chive, and just, you know, going down to the fish market and grabbing a pound of shrimp and just throwing that in some paper, throwing that on the grill, or if you don't have a grill, throwing it in your oven at like 400 for 10, 12 minutes. It's done for you. You know, you pull it out and it's perfectly cooked and full of richness. So, you know, we can talk more about what you can use for these in cooking. Later on, we have the cinnamon, cardamom, ginger. I'm sure people have already thought of what to do with that. I did have a good pastry chef friend up in New York, Jacqueline Zion. She took some of our red pepper mash and she actually made some croissants with it. You know, laminated it and got a really great flavor that she was serving with some fried eggs and avocado on there. But yeah, I mean, it's an amazing thing to cook with. Taking just a simple recipe that your grandmother gave you of chocolate chip cookies and adding cultured butter to it, you get a better idea of what she was going for in the first place.
Yeah. All right. So let's see what we got next up coming up here.
Well, the red pepper mash is absolutely one of my favorites. It's a mainstay at my house. I mean, if I'm being truthful here, because I get to make this stuff, all these are mainstay at my house. But this one ends up in dishes that I'm making all the time. It's unique in that we're using fermented Fresno peppers in making it. So you're not only getting that kind of funkiness and depth of flavor from from the butter itself, but we're adding to that with the fermented Fresno peppers. And this was really something because of Drew and Elizabeth's trips in Europe to start off with. They were tasting these amazing Espelette butters, and they wanted, you know, the American, a little more rowdy version of that. This, I do think, just pairs so well with aged cheeses and a little bit meats that have a little bit of funk to them. But the nice thing about this, you know, we're getting in these fermented peppers all the time, so we're tasting them because they are a natural product. That some batches are obviously going to be much hotter, scorching compared to others. So, you know, kind of get in there and really tweak them each batch. But the goal that I'm going for each time is that it's just this nice subtle heat that sits kind of in the back of your throat, never building to a point where it's just, you know, kicking you. You can't feel like you can take another bite or anything like that, but a subtle reminder that this beautiful fermented Fresno pepper is there. And I'm excited to see what you think of it with the cheese and with the meat and them together.
I needed something that would be a little sweeter and also have a little bit of flavor characteristics of buttery flavor, but I didn't want the butter to be the key. I wanted really to have some sweetness, and that's why I went with the Carr Valley, their aged Gouda, because this is really a direction of being able to get a little bit of maple and caramel. And I really thought that the red pepper mash and the little bit of the sweet caramel, and then with the buttery flavor that's going in there, would work really well. And on top of that, I really wanted to have a little bit of sweet herb. And that's why I chose the Firehook Rosemary Sea Salt Organic Mediterranean baked crackers. I thought that would be really a good combination of flavors. And then, you know, going with Genoa salami, I thought would be, you know, really, again, bringing all those flavors out. Yeah. And I just love the way that the flavors kind of jump, they go down, they kind of mix around, because you get different things that go across the flavor palette. And so what I was trying to figure out, and I think was the hardest part about this pairing, ended up being what beer was I going to serve with it. Because at first I was thinking, well, you know, I probably want to go with a wine or a Prosecco, something like that. It had some effervescence that kind of worked there. And then I thought about my little friend, Mama's little yellow pills with Oskar blues, and having a Pilsner with the bread. This is kind of like having a biscuit, you know, because, you know, or beer is liquid bread. So this has got a nice little biscuit that kind of helps, but it's the carbonation, the effervescence is really what really helps that out.
Yeah, you just won a special place in our in Courtney, our director of ops, heart when you brought that out. Yeah, I can totally see where you're saying and where you were going to some, you know, even like a light white with just a little bit of pentillions, you know, to dance around. I always used to like spiciness and that just little kind of dance on your tongue that some of those like whites from Germany might do.
Yeah, that's the thing, is that when you have that spiciness there and having the sweetness of the Gouda tones that down. But you get, I think what is so cool is you get the flavors of the red pepper, and the heat drops down to a very manageable part.
Yeah.
I think that's just really great. And of
yeah,
course,
it definitely lets you know that it's there at first, but then as you continue, it hits this much more kind of almost like a bass note in the back, right?
Well, you know, my first thought was that you sent me home with some, I believe, jalapeno butter. And as that we're pretty big fans of heat and that. But I have to tell you that I was questioning on whether or not that was jalapeno or ghost pepper.
That actually was this. In you know, that is you know, again, dealing with natural products. We definitely try to make sure that we keep a consistency. It's very important to us. But I've had every once in a while one that hits me a little bit more than another. But yeah, we're definitely happy with how this turned out.
I've so far in the 24 segments that I've done, I've had 2 ghost peppers. One was with Pine River, and I still can, I believe I'm still tasting that somewhere along the line. And another one was with Ellsworth with Bashers, that they had that. And I have to say that that probably is way beyond my palate enjoyment.
Yeah.
But this red pepper has some heat to it that I think is like if you're doing a recipe, a Spanish recipe, that you do need some heat in it. But even I would think even a Thai recipe that needs a little bit of butter, this would actually be amazing on some noodles and some flavors that you really want to kick up that flavor profile. On being able to add the butter and also the real.
I mean, when you're talking about those like Southeast Asian flavor profiles, I mean,
Yeah.
we're always talking about the heat, but you're also talking about a funkiness that's coming behind it with like fish sauces, and you're getting it with this. So that's, you know, that's where I kind of think that comes in.
Yeah, there's just so many applications that I could see having for this. And again, what you have to, and I just not only appreciate but love is just how creamy this is. This is literally melt in your mouth on the palate. There is just an incredible amount of the cream that's in here.
Yeah, well, I mean,
Nothing like what I've seen with. I've played with a lot of butters, and this is definitely beyond that scope of, well, it's a nice blended butter. This is just so, I wouldn't say, I think when you think about butter and you think about its richness, there's a level where you go, well, it's so rich that it's unpalatable because it's too much butter. It's not too much butter. It's actually, the butter flavor is a little subdued, but the cream here, the what you really get out of a butter out of here is just, that's the amazing part.
It really comes down to the amazing farmers that we have and the dairies that we work with, and working and ensuring that they're well treated, and they're giving us the best that they possibly can give by us treating them as well as they can be treated.
Yeah. Well,
it does make a difference. You know, it's not just taglines. It's not just something that you put on a box to make it move at the local grocery store. These are, you know, the idea behind this is to make the best possible product that we can, and I think that's what we're doing here.
And what I think is truly unique about it is how well they blend or work with different cheeses. You know, I picked the aged Gouda because I really wanted to bring some sweetness to it, the maple, the caramel on there. But
I'm really jealous that you got the Gouda there. I couldn't find any last night, and I think I may have to stop on the way home to pick some up just to pair it along.
Well, I would say that you could probably do this with a triple creme brie, because the amount of butter that would work together with this This wouldn't be bad with the truffle either. You know, I think there's a lot of
I will tell you,
in the different styles of cheese that you can work with versus being, oh, well, this only works with this. These flavors really cross over. I mean, as I'm tasting these, I'm thinking about, oh, I could use it with this or I could use it with that. So if you're going to take this and make a cheese board and add a little bit of butter on it, you can do just about anything with it. It's not a, this is not one of those things where you have to be so exact that, oh, I want to pair this with that. This is a broad stroke in its flavor characteristic.
And it allows you to play. It allows you to really enjoy what you're doing. And the other thing that, like, you know, the cost of importing a beautiful cheese from France and buying this from us, there's a big difference. And you know, if you're doing this for a restaurant or just on your own, and the fact that you have this and it's such a different, unique product, I think lends a lot to it. But I did want to mention, I got from our friends at Spotted Trotter the boxcar, the Rocket Rabiola.
Oh.
So I just had that with some of that, and yeah, it's just absolutely beautiful. Did you want to move on to the last of our pairings? I know you were getting short on time.
There isn't anybody to kick us off.
That's true.
All right, here we go.
All right.
And there's actually a question coming up, and I'll get to that once you get through here.
So yeah, this is our cinnamon cardamom ginger. You know, when I was thinking about the pairing for this, I thought, you know, I think some of the funkier cheeses, especially funky blues, often have almost like a cheesecake kind of note to it, that little touch of sweetness. I think this plays off of that, but also if you're kind of going on those cheeses that are just, you know, absolute monsters, I think that this will kind of balance that off. I think it's also good, like, you know, a lot of times we're used to putting spiced nuts or candied nuts onto a plate as something that's going to match with our cheeses. You know, I think this does the job just as well. Or if you wanted to roast your mixed nuts in this, you'd have a delicious way to go about it too. So if you're tasting along at home, if you want to smell this one, I mean, I think the cardamom really comes out up front for me, at least. And it should be warm spices. It should be all those things that you love coming home to in the fall and the winter to smell baking.
I went with the Asher Blue.
Okay.
I wanted to have some sweetness. As a matter of fact, I thought, you know, what would work really well would be a mascarpone or creme fraiche, you know, adding those in there. But that's what everybody would do. I mean, you know, that's no different than, I wouldn't say that it's a bad choice. It's a great choice. It's a magnificent direction to be able to go in. But I really wanted to be able to show how unique and diverse that you can get with these boards, you know, by using the you know, the blue on this with the flavors, because there's a sweetness. And one of the reasons why I picked Asher Blue is that when you talk about blues and you talk about the flavor characteristics, you have a wide variety. You know, this is more of an earthy. You can see how beautiful this rind is on here, which is completely edible. It's a natural rind. And so I paired this up with the black pepper sorghum, which I think is just, you know, really cool to have that little bit of heat with the cinnamon and the ginger. And then something that I've done a lot is these are the Three Little Pigs petite toast. And what petite toast can do is they can actually kind of take away an intensity. I use them a lot for really robust washed rind cheeses because they can be overwhelming in some ways. But especially if you have guests or friends that are, fair weather cheese friends, I mean, I even got fair weather cheese friends, and so I want to help them out, and this kind of does that. And then I wanted to kind of sweeten the deal a little bit here with the beer. So I went with the New Belgian. This is the mothership, and it's the wit beer. And I really adore these, and you can see how hazy and light that this is. So we're adding carbonation. We're adding a little bit of the sweet flavors. So we're kind of bouncing back in here, but what they do is as we add each of them together, they kind of help each other to bridge the earthy to the sweet back to the little bit of sweet. So you kind of get a big balance when you put them together. Individually, they're going to be, hold on their own, but on here. And when you're talking about blues, I say this so many times that people say, well, I tried blue and I don't like blue. It's like going into the produce department and taking a bite of a vegetable and saying, I don't like vegetables. Well,
Right.
there's a ton of different flavor characteristics. And this happens to be earthy, which I think works really well with the cinnamon and the ginger and the butter flavors. That's me.
Yeah, no, I mean, I've always been a lover of blue, but when I worked in restaurants up in New York, getting someone who would tell me that I just can't have that. I had it once and I don't like it. It's a thrill to be able to guide someone into something that's completely new for them and turn them on to something that they otherwise thought they didn't like. I will say that I tried the black pepper sorghum, but I also brought out one of my favorites that Spotted Trotter does, their spicy chupacabra. It's a goat's meat, and I just wanted to see how this would stand up just because we're having so much fun. Might as well. And there's a little bit of sweetness there too.
I could really see that, these spices work really well with creme fraiche and mascarpone and that. And, but I think that would be just amplifying the flavor characteristic that you already have. You already have that built into here. You have the cream, you have the butter, you have all those flavors through there. So, you really have the structure already. So kicking it into something different. So maybe you might not like or appreciate an earthy blue, but like the tanginess that you get from a goat cheese, you could go a little bit more tangier with the blue by adding in just like a gorgonzola or a traditional blue instead of going with this. But I like the way that it kind of cuts across. It's more robust to me, and the flavor characteristics really transcend the petite toast. Really mellow out. I think the intensity that you get, and I think it's really odd that you have a cracker or toast that does that, but that's just its characteristic.
And you said you had a question that popped up?
Yes, the question was on ingredients. Do you add them in during the mix, after the mix? Are they dry ingredients? Are they freshly cut? Talk a little bit about the types of things.
So I'll step back just a little bit before that. And so, like I was showing you or telling you when you got the little tour of our facility, tomorrow morning we'll come in, pump out the ripened creme fraiche and into our churn. At that point, we're going to run the churn, and that's going to separate the curds and whey, the two parts that are there. We'll pour off from the bottom all the way, bottle that up, gallon it, and put it in quarts and 8-ounce containers to be sold. And then what we'll have is we'll get it to just the curds. There's still going to be whey in there, and we want to get it as much of that out as possible to get that high butter fat of 84 to 87, that range that we're always shooting for. At that point, we're going to wash it with ice water. And that does two things. It's going to have the butter fat itself pushed together, and as we're spinning it, it's going to force the rest of the whey out. And we'll do 3 large cold water washes with that until it's coming out completely clear on the other end. At that point, we're at what we call the popcorn phase. In classic French butter making, it'd be called the mille de grain. Sorry if I butchered that, but it's at that point that we start the actual, what we call our churning process. And that will, depending on the butter fat that the cows are giving us, depending on how long we let ripen, depending on the outside temperature, a lot of different factors go into it. Will determine the amount of time that we need to spin that, and constantly just working on getting more and more of the excess water out of there. What we'll end up with is a log, about probably 5 feet long and maybe 3 feet tall, cylindrical log. And at that point, we test the butter fat. In that video that you saw Drew pulling some of that butter out and putting it into a thing into over a flame to burn off the excess liquid, and we test our butter fat to get it within that range. Once we're there, that's when we add the flavors. Once we're absolutely sure that we have a beautiful creamy product that we would either take out and produce that as our unsalted butter, that's when we add the flavors. Now, depending on the different flavors, we have different techniques to use it. Again, we spent upwards of 5 hours to make sure we got as much liquid out of that churn as possible to get a very high butter fat percentage. So we really try not to add more liquid in there. The herbs for the roasted garlic, we strain those as much as we can. We have some proprietary means to go about that, but we're getting them as dry as we can first in there. Now, I do some work with some local chefs at hotels and restaurants in town. We have one hotel that has a rooftop apiary. They really want to do something that showed off what they were playing around with there. So, obviously we wanted this beautifully local product to go in there. So, it's not like we dehydrated the honey. We just took that honey, put in, used some other techniques to make sure that we were didn't get it as too wet, and spun that with some rosemary. So we had a rosemary honey for them with their own honey that they produced. So different things have different techniques, and it's really just those are the times where we get to play around, which is really fun. This last we do 2 seasonal butters every 3 months. The last season I got to do a blackberry basil, and it's just playing around with those until we get it to a point where we're satisfied that we're getting you the highest quality butter on its own, plus adding some flavor to that. So something like the lemon chive, which is one of our seasonal flavors right now, that is a lot of chives that I spend a good portion of the day beforehand just hand chopping, and then we go through a process of making sure that beforehand that they're clean, and then drying those out. But everyone is different, and it's just been spending the time to figure out what is getting you the best product. So it varies, but if you're producing butter or you're doing this at home, just remember that to get that high butter fat, you're expelling as much liquid as you possibly can. So adding liquid after you've done that is you're somewhat defeating your own purpose. So I hope that makes sense.
I had great faith in our ability to be able to take butter and blend them in with the cheeses and come up with some really nice pairings. And in theory, I knew that there would be a good opportunity to be able to show how that would work. But when we were doing this, it dawned on me that a lot of the cheeses that are available, they're doing that. When you mix a goat with a cow, that's what we're doing here. Is we have a cow's milk butter that's being mixed with a fresh goat cheese, and that is a cheese that is commercially available. So you're able to kind of modify the flavor characteristics of these. You know, I do a risotto that I use goat cheese for, and it gives it a real creaminess. But adding in a little bit of the sea salt or adding in the roasted garlic and parsley, basil to my risotto, adding that on top of it would just be crazy good. You think about the flavor characteristics that you're getting out of it. And I have to say that the authenticity of the herbs that are in here are above and beyond. They are, you really taste those flavors so well, but not at a point where that's all you taste. It blended out where I taste the butter, I taste the parsley, I taste the basil. It's really just a beautiful blend that you could do so much with these.
Yeah, we're excited to get into these people's hands so they can see what's going on with it and continue this idea that these belong here. These are we take our time and effort to produce something that we think is is different than a cheese, but really can take your cheese or charcuterie board to a different space than a lot of people realize.
In a lot of recipes, as a matter of fact, Cowgirl Creamery, Peggy Smith, who is the co-founder of that, she has a cookbook. And one of the things that she states is that she uses multiple cheeses to be able to create a recipe. And so this is no different. This is taking a cheese, adding the cultured butter to it, taking the cheese, adding a cultured butter to it with flavors in it. This is no different than doing Asiago with a Parmesan with another flavor, with a mozzarella. So you're doing these different cheeses that work here, but what you're doing here is you're kicking it up in a way that really brings out some true flavors of the butteriness that's one of the things that we love about it. And you explained earlier the health benefits of cultured grass-fed butter.
I mean, I'll be honest, I'm not thinking about that usually when I'm eating it, but it is there. And it is, I think it's important, especially, I think a lot more people are being turned on to this idea that I was brought up that, if I had to eat my broccoli too, it was a bad thing. But, things can be good for you and you can do the right thing and enjoy it as well,
Well, think of it, broccoli, Brussels sprouts, asparagus with, the garlic, roasted garlic, the parsley and basil.
I'm in a somewhat unique position where, I often, you talked about your friend at Cowgirl mixing the cheeses. I often mix the butter. So, I do a soft scramble for my girlfriend and I on the weekend mornings. And I start off with sauteing the onions in the roasted garlic. And then once I get going a little bit, I add some of the red pepper mash. So you have a little bit of extra flavor there. and then I take some cheese and melted that into the whole process. So yeah, I mean, I think just playing around, being able to play with your food in a really great way is always fun.
So I have a question. I've never really thought about it, but let's say that I can't consume these in a timely manner. Could I divide them up and freeze them?
Absolutely. So I'm glad you brought that up. You know, I think there are a lot of questions, especially because we aren't using anything but the cream, the bacteria, the enzymes, and the cultures, and that we're not, you know, adding any preservatives to it. So like, how long will this stay? When we send this out to people, we give them a little card. These will stay fresh in your freezer for a year. So oftentimes, you know, if you know, I have family members who, you know, one of our ounce pats is too much for them to handle at one meal, and I have others who go through, you know, chef rolls over and over again. So what we generally say is, you know, depending on what your needs are, maybe cut one of these 5-ounce round, which these are that we're tasting, in half. Put the other half in the freezer, and once you take it out of the freezer, it's approximately 2 months after that they'll stay fresh for you. So you have plenty of time to work with. I struggle to keep any of them around for 2 months once they're open, but I challenge you to see what you can do.
Yeah, as a quartermaster sommelier and teaching wine, you know, to stores or to restaurants, one of the first questions you get was, so how long will the wine last that's left in the bottle?
Yeah.
Wine left in a bottle?
People would ask me that question. I didn't quite understand what they were saying either. But,
They're like, depending on the recipe. But because I have these 4, I'm not going to be able to consume them. I say that. You know, we have the weekend coming up, and my wife loves butter. So the next thing, they may be gone by the weekend. I don't know.
But if not, so if you're looking for this weekend to do some cooking, you know, I think any type of greens, like we were talking about, Brussels sprouts, asparagus, any broccoli or cauliflower, the herbs for the roasted garlic, or the spiciness of the red pepper. I really like crisping up some Brussels sprout leaves in the red pepper. You know, I think that the sweetness that naturally comes from caramelizing those plays off well with that. So, you know, I think that's a good way to go. With the cinnamon cardamom, I just got back from a kind of a family outing up in Virginia, and you know, it's for a larger group of people. So I just put together some stone fruit crisp and just sprinkled that over the top at the last second and kind of broiled it off, so it really got baked in there. But I also kind of added that into the plums and the peaches that I was using. So I mean, the great thing about having all these on hand, and like I said, from this point up to 2 months, if you're not freezing it, is to be able to play around with anything. See what some of your family favorites are that you make on the regular, and then try them with this, and see the difference that happens. You know, I just think that a cultured butter is going to give you so much more depth of flavor in anything that you're doing, and it's a fun little experiment that you and your loved ones can do. Like, this is the one that we do every Thursday night, or, you know, this is grandma's favorite. Now try grandma's favorite with this.
Yeah. Well, I have taught, because a lot of times when we get closer to the holidays, a lot of people say, well, you know, I want to do a baked brie. What do I top it with? So a lot of times I take Granny Smith apples. I'll put them in butter and a little bit of brown sugar, saute them, get them nice and soft, and then put them on top, and then bake the brie with a breading on that. And I was just thinking, as you were saying that, is that taking the apples and sauteing them in the cinnamon and ginger and that flavor, and letting them work there, and then smearing that on top of the breading of the brie, and then baking that would be, you know, a Christmas from, you know, the originals, you know, what people would do back in the day before they had commercial supplies of being able to buy that. And I think it's just the usage.
You set off a memory for me too. I had some friends who opened up a hotel and a bed and breakfast up in upstate New York, and you know, just going up to those mountains, and I was playing around with rubbing like pears with rosemary, and then putting them on or putting a piece of taleggio on the pear with a little bit of honey and grilling them. But I think if you took those pears and some taleggio and a little bit of the cinnamon, I think, you know, you'd have something really really interesting there.
You know, there's probably about 40 to 60 different cheeses that you could use on that from across the board. But the key, I think, that people need to think about is that it's the simplicity of adding this to it that accelerates it. It's it's like having concentrated flavors in, you know, instead of being able to create all the additions to it, is having that in one little package that allows you to be able to add in. You know, you can have use these in one meal and come up with, well, this with chicken, this with the vegetables, this with the dessert, you know, so you could literally have an entire dinner based with the addition. And again, light. It doesn't have to, you don't have to use 5 ounces. You can use like a little amount that blends in. And I think that's just the really, really cool part about what you have. And so, you know, somewhere along the line, you need to send me like 2 or 3 more care packages.
Yeah, that can be done. We do these great mix and match packs that I think you have a link to our website that's up there. So you can pick 6 different flavors, or we even do a 12-pack that you can do that. And we're actually partnering up with some great small businesses around town. There's a really great brother team that do, it's called Simple Bread Company. And so if you buy from us right now, I think it's, if you buy over six butters, we include 2 of their bagels. And just as, you know, I haven't had better bagels outside of New York since I left, and I love what these guys are doing. So just another plug for some local Georgia, Atlanta businesses.
All right. Well, I've had to switch beer. We've been doing this long enough. So last thing, is there anything that you want to add to it before we, you know, finish up here?
No, I just, I think, you know, you broadened kind of, you've given us a great vehicle to talk about why we think this is. And I think you're exactly right. This accelerates anything that you put it in front of. You know, any food that you have, any type of cooking you want to do, this brings up that flavor, and you can play around with a lot of different things, even in one meal, whether it's starting with your cheese or charcuterie plate, moving into some appetizers just a little bit, and then into your entree, and then onto dessert. So you have tons of options to play around, and I hope that everyone who attended has a little bit better idea of what cultured butter is, what we do here at Baron Butter, but why cultured butter gives you so much more depth of flavor.
I appreciate the time that you've taken. We got some comments, no questions, but comments, but appreciating the great detail that you went into of being able to explain the differences so people understand that. So that's very helpful. I hope that we can with your diversity of flavors that we can actually make this an annual event, maybe
Right. No, I hope so.
right around fall time, and do some getting ready for the holidays or something.
Yeah, and we do one of our winter seasonals is a dark chocolate butter, and we pair up with Chocolatto, which is another Atlanta-based company, and they've been around for about 5 years. And we get some of their cocoa from Peru and some of their cocoa nibs, and I get to put that in with this butter and make basically the world's most decadent chocolate frosting in a churn. But it's amazing, and it'll be back next year. We're all out this year, but if you're new to butter, look us up, hit us up. We'd love to send you guys some tastes. And if you have any questions, you can find me at Jonathan R, as in Russell, at bannerbutter.com. I'm more than happy to answer any questions that you guys may have.
All right, cool.
Thank you so much, Michael. Really, really appreciate it.
It's my pleasure. It was great being able to sit back and kind of chat at the end here. Really enjoyed that. One of my favorite parts is being able to just kind of hang out and enjoy the end. So again, thank you for the great spread. We'll be enjoying that today, tomorrow, all the way through. And I really appreciate the quality that you do, and of course the time that you took. It was really a fun evening or afternoon. So cheers, and let's look at the calendar, get another date set, and get it up on the board.
Perfect. I'd love that. All right. Thank you, Michael. Have a great night.
All right, you too. Take care. All right, so tomorrow will be Cigar City. We'll have Neil on board, and he'll be talking about all the fun stuff that he's got. So we'll do beer pairing with some cheese, and I got a little extra charcuterie, so I might throw a little bit in there. So enjoy, and thanks a lot for coming in and spending a little time with us. All right, good night.